But I want to go back to yesterday. There was a press conference with Governor Josh Green, and he and some others there to give the latest information. But what I didn't count on was this following exchange and response from the governor when I wanted to know about media access. Leading up to this question, there were two reporters in the press conference that had asked the governor about issues having to do with mistrust, that people didn't trust FEMA, people didn't trust local authorities. So there had already been two questions asked about mistrust. Then I asked mine. Thank you very kindly. I appreciate it. Steve Gregory, iHeartMedia, KFI Los Angeles. People we've been talking to, the word mistrust, distrust has come up quite a bit in conversations we've had with locals. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that media are not allowed into areas, and there's no independent or objective reporting allowed because we're not allowed access. We're getting a sanitized version. We're getting a one-dimensional version of events. At what point is the media going to be allowed to start reporting what's really going on?
So how many media went with us in on Saturday? Could you see a raise of hands? Because I'm sure there were many with us. 6 or 8. Because we had a media gaggle with us on Saturday. To suggest that we're not providing access is just simply inaccurate.
Well, we're being turned away.
Well, I'm glad you're being turned away in this case, because otherwise you'd be tromping on our dead neighbors. Now, I'll answer the questions. You've done enough. That is what's happened. We've twice been in there. We've showed a great deal of pictures. There's footage. If you want to see the dust of those who have been lost, that's what you would see if you walk down there. Moreover, we do want to tell the stories, which is why we're here today. And we're happy to tell the stories, but a lot of the stories are very personal stories that people tell us in confidence because they don't know yet themselves what they've lost. So feeding your desire to tell a story, you in particular in this moment, is not my goal. My goal is to make sure people are protected. My people are protected from the additional trauma. The stories can be told over the many months. Your desire to tell it here on day 5, when people are beginning to go through the worst psychological traumas of their lives, is simply ugly.
Well,
wow.
There you go.
You're the problem.
I'm the problem.
You're the problem. You were tromping on dead bodies. You wanted to view the dust of the victims, and you're ugly.
Yeah. So
I've never heard a governor react like that to a reporter.
What do you think? What do you take from that?
We usually, when a politician gets very defensive, because we were running a clip of Gascon, who had a similar attitude over the smash and grab robberies at a press conference yesterday, it means he knows a lot went wrong, and there's a certain amount of guilt, and a certain amount of, when somebody's defensive, it means they're trying to protect themselves, they're trying to cover something. I'm guessing he knows that this was handled very badly by the government. And the longer you can string out the story, the less people are going to care. Right. Is that anything like what you're thinking?
Well, yeah. And the thing is that if you listen to the question the way I asked the question, I didn't tell him he was screwing up, and I didn't tell him that I didn't trust him. I told him that's what people were telling me. So I'm trying to get answers for people that are asking me the questions. And so for him to go like that, and, we've been doing this a long time, it was classic, defensive mode and upset. But here's the really interesting thing. So I thought we were done with this. I thought this was over. I had a lot of colleagues reaching out to me, telling me that they couldn't believe what the governor did. I went on with one of our affiliates this morning in Honolulu. He was so outraged over this. I spent a half hour on his talk show this morning talking about it. People were calling in outraged on my behalf. So it struck a nerve. And here's the funny thing, John. I get into the elevator yesterday after I'm done, and all the local media were like, thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying something. I'm like, well, where were you when I needed you? And, so I can tell that the local media here, they are walking a delicate line because they have to keep working with these government officials long after we're out of here. But I can tell that they are very intimidated by it.
Yeah, and I have a lot of trouble with media like that, reporters like that, because your job is to get the truth out to your viewers and listeners. That's your job. Your job is not to worry about your relationship with the governor. If the governor doesn't want to talk about something because this is a huge embarrassment on his administration and the local administrations, well, that's just the way it is. That's the truth. And I know you're like this. We're just interested in getting the truth out. And the people listening to us or watching TV news, they just want to know the truth. And there's a lot of stories that are going to be told about this situation. And they're not going to be flattering to the government. It's already unflattering.
Now, did you consider that me being professional?
Yeah, you were very reasonable in asking that. And for him to turn it into you're tromping on the bodies and you want to observe the dust, and it's an ugly request. I mean, that was way over the top.
So when we come back, he did a live shot with a local TV station this morning and addressed it, and I'll play that for you.
Ooh, cool. All right, coming up, John and Ken Show, KFI.
You're listening to John and Ken on demand from KFI AM 640.
After 4 o'clock, the iHeart app, John and Ken on demand. That's the podcast. And we continue with Steve Gregory in Maui covering the horrific fire in Lahaina. And in the last segment, Steve told us how the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, snapped at him because Steve wanted to know why the media wasn't getting more access to tell the story of what's gone on there. And the governor said that you're going to be tromping on the dead bodies, looking at people who've turned to dust, and that the whole request was ugly. And a lot of reporters, at least afterwards, really took offense at the way Steve was treated. Now, you got part two here.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of over. I was getting text messages from colleagues that listened to the press conference because, I mean, that press conference went around the world yesterday. So, I'm just getting some notes of support and things like that, people, chuckling. But this morning I got a clip from an interview that the governor was doing on live television locally here, and he brought up the exchange yesterday.
We trust our local people. Can I be honest with you? Some people ask me questions like in the press conference yesterday. They were like mainland folks, raging, mad, yelling, why can't I get in, and so on. And when I said, you're going to be stepping on the ashes of our loved ones, they scowled at me and swore under their breath. And those people can go shove it. And they need to know that we're here for our people and our deceased. I know that our local people don't have any inclination like that to abuse the rules or to not go in when the time is right. But we're really dealing with a complicated situation because the whole world is watching. Mm-hmm. So for the whole world that's watching, donate resources, cash donations to Hawaii Community Foundation for the recovery.
So
he's a liar.
Shove it.
Shove it?
Yeah.
You weren't yelling and screaming.
Shove it. Nope.
Oh,
and we have a video of
wrong?
me actually having that exchange with him.
That's crazy. That is really one of the craziest things I've heard.
Can you believe that?
Coming out of a governor. All you have to do is answer the question.
I mean, he's really, really, really mischaracterizing that whole event. And it's sad because any reporter that was in that room yesterday with me knows. To my immediate left was NPR. To my left after that was NBC National. To my right was a local and two local people to my right. So if I had done anything out of line or anything unprofessional, all of them, I'm sure would have reacted or said something. But I defy the governor to get evidence of any of those accusations.
That was just an outright lie. He's trying to intimidate the rest of the media. I mean, you talked about, you sensed that the local reporters were intimidated by the governor, and I can see now why. Because he'll say anything to shut down.
And the police chief. Oh, the police chief, John, he's former Las Vegas Metro PD, and he laid down the law yesterday. I mean, he's the one. He takes great pride in arresting and detaining reporters, and he yesterday was just bullying us and chastising us for wanting to do our job, telling us, we decide when you get to know. We decide what you get to know. We'll tell you. And I mean, just those kinds of lectures, like we're all children. And it was really just unnerving on how they got up there and just laid this all out.
Did Hawaii not agree to the First Amendment when they applied for statehood? Did freedom of the press not make it there?
Well, I should have known. My first red flag was when his press secretary came in and said, "Oh, welcome everybody. For those of you that were here Saturday, great to see you. For those of you that haven't been here before, welcome, aloha. And just want to tell you about the aloha spirit. We welcome your questions, but just so you know, we want to limit one question per outlet, and please be respectful. And we will give you your answer, and you may not like your answer, but we're going to have to move on." That was her prep. So you may not like the answer, but please respect the boundaries and the process, and we'll need to move on.
Once the king speaks, the king speaks, and it's
right. So
that's
the
obnoxious.
NBC guy, Tom Yamas, and I are looking at each other like, "What?" And he barely got his question in, and it was about why they didn't turn off the power. And you should have seen the response from that CEO from Hawaiian Electric. She got up there and sort of stammered about that, and then she just read from a prepared statement, and that was her response to the question, "Why didn't you turn off the power?"
I heard her response during the newscast, and it didn't make any sense.
And she basically said that what we do in California is controversial and not accepted by everybody.
Well,
the power shut off.
You might have had 99 fewer deaths. And they should have backup generators to deal with people or deal with facilities like a hospital that can't afford to have the power shut down. But that's what backup generators are for. It's almost like the entire region was working out of a playbook from 100 years ago.
Well, it's been made very clear, not only yesterday in his comments about, well, for those of you from the outside or outsiders, he kept throwing that in there.
Yeah,
and then today it was mainland, but it's very clear we're not welcome here. It's very clear they don't want any accountability. It's very clear. Now, it was made – I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, your question, though, the original question that started this controversy was that you got a sense from the locals, the Hawaiians, that they didn't trust what they were hearing from the government.
Right.
Well, that's a real thing. People don't trust the government.
And they weren't getting anything. I mean, not only were they felt like they didn't get the right answers, they were getting any answers. And that was just as important to them.
Well, I thought he was completely out of line and practically slanderous to you. Yeah. I mean, mischaracterized is a very polite term. That was just complete BS.
Yeah, can you imagine me? I can't wait to run in there and start trampling over dead bodies and the ash of dead people. That's me.
That was really rude and bullying. He's trying to shut you down for good because he thinks you're from Los Angeles and you're working for iHeart and you're here to cause him a lot of trouble and embarrassment.
Well, it's about to happen. And I only say that because everyone else is calling me. It's the question heard around the world now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a lot of screw ups there. You went through it all yesterday. The electricity not being shut off. There wasn't much in the way of water pressure. Roads were blocked off. People trapped in their cars and died. The sirens didn't go off. The phone message alerts didn't work because the cell phone system was down. I mean, they were completely unprepared for this.
Yep.
All right, Steve. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Bye.
You're going to deport him. Wow. That's a weird kind of arrogance. It's like, oh, you're from the mainland. Well, I guess, when you sit out in the ocean, you do feel like you're your own private country, and he's the dictator. By the way, the governor's name is Josh Green.